Brought to you by the New Jersey Office of the Insurance Fraud Prosecutor.
Welcome to Caucus, New Jersey, our brand new set here. I'm Steve Aduabto. You know, higher education institutions are not only educating students, but have a major impact on the New Jersey economy. Here in the studio to discuss the role that colleges and universities play outside the classroom, we have Dr. Joel Bloom, who has been with us before. He is the president of the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Dr. Ali Hushman, back again, president of Rowan University. Dr. Christopher Malloy, Senior Vice President of the Office of Research and Economic Development at Rutgers University, and Dr. Nariman Vardan, President of Stevens Institute of Technology. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us to talk about research, innovation, higher education, and its connection to business development. Joel, let me ask you, we have talked about this issue before on your campus.
Yes.
The question really is, you've said right before we get on the air that this is changing, the relationship between higher ed and, is it the business community?
The business community in general, business and industry. The early relationship was about the workforce. You know, we all helped to create the workforce. And in the state of New Jersey, the science, technology, engineering workforce is critical. Somebody told me within the square mile of this studio, there are at least 30 scientists and engineers, and that's kind of statewide. So we are intensely a science and technology and engineering state. So the first reason that many of us were created was to help create the workforce for the industry all the way back in the late 1800s. What's changed today is the relationship between R&D, research and development, and industry. The classic case in the state of New Jersey, Bell Labs at one time had 25,000 employees, not only in New Jersey, but a predominance in New Jersey. Now they're about, I don't know, 1,500 employees. Mm-hmm. There's really no more Watson Lab, Sarnoff Lab, Xerox famous Park Lab is gone. So where is business and industry going? And what's the role of the Academy of Academic Institutions in business and industry?
So Dr. Hushman, is it fair to say, as we listen to Dr. Bloom, that the role of higher education, that you're pressed into service and that equals an opportunity then to fill this void?
Well, there is definitely an opportunity because I really believe as the technology has changed and the interrelationship, nature of relationship between industry and higher education has evolved, I think we're at a point where what we are producing as workforce or set of knowledge has to become relevant to the industry, has to immediately translate into something tangible, whether it's job, whether it's product, whether it's a new technology or new industry. Otherwise, to me, is a waste of energy and resources. And that's really the challenge, that we need to have substantially more interaction between industry and universities to really talk about R&D being one of them. I mean, industries go and hire many people and they do research and development. Universities go and hire many researchers and they do a lot of research. The question is there any interaction between these two, and we need to strengthen that. I can think of even industries collaborating with universities where they can hire individuals who can be a part of their R&D team as well as part of the faculty. I think we need to look at those things. We need to really become much more closer so that from knowledge creation into product development, there's a shortest distance possible.
To Dr. Hushman's point, to disclose, I was actually down on your campus recently, Rowan Boulevard, I believe it is called. Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to be teaching at your university next semester. Mm-hmm. It is a huge collaboration that created this thing called Rowan University. Is that a good example of what is being spoken about here?
This is a good example.
What is it?
From the infrastructure point of view. It was an institution who could not on its own expand and grow the infrastructure. And it was a town that really wasn't doing very well.
Is it Glassboro?
Glassboro. And Glassboro decided to basically purchase a piece of land, a plot of land, and invite industry to come in and partner with us so that the Glassboro puts the land, the industry puts the money, Rowan gets the use, and everybody benefits. But that is the structural part of it. What we are talking about is much bigger than that. The role of technology, the role of knowledge, and what do you do as you create the knowledge, how do you translate it or transfer it into product and industries is really the key.
So, Doctor, let me ask you, I'll come to Chris in a second, and I know that over at NJIT there's an awful lot of development going on there, and there's business incubators going on, and that's a piece of this. There's a lot of pieces to this. Yes. But over at Stevens, I mean, Rutgers is, I hate to say this, I don't mean in a negative way, is all over the place. And the footprint, if I can say that, Chris, is huge. But the Stevens piece, if you were to give us a couple of examples, a concrete example, Doctor, where you say, we are engaged in these ways outside the classroom, having a big impact, research, innovation, and business development, what would it be?
Steve, I think to put the answer in the right context, I'd like to start by saying that we are strong believers that technology, or maybe science, engineering, technology, has been a key driver of economic development and human progress for a long time. There's ample evidence that since World War II, the primary contributor to GDP growth in this country has been innovations in these fields.
Is there something different now?
Nothing is different except that the pace of technological advancement is accelerating. So everything that we have witnessed in the past 70 years is going to happen a lot faster in the coming years. So we in higher education have a very significant responsibility to not only stay at the cutting edge, but to produce the workforce that a modern labor market demands.
Produce the workforce?
Exactly.
Yeah, an educated workforce. How about keeping them here once they graduate, which has also been a challenge?
Well, if we look at our parochial local interests, keeping them here locally to create a vibrant economy. If we think about the national interest, we can say wherever the workforce goes, it's good for the country. But to go back to your question, to the question that you asked, concrete examples. We now have a research center that makes very, very precise determination of the location and the time of arrival of extreme weather events. So next time you have Hurricane Sandy, you call up Stevens and you ask them, what would be the level of water surge in Hoboken, New Jersey at such and such hour so that the city can prepare itself? This is one concrete example. I'll give you another concrete example. Faculty members in our research labs are developing a solar panel that is transparent. So your window glass can become a solar cell and a source of energy.
This is technology developed on the higher ed level, having a direct impact from an economic point of view, quality of life issue, and the Rutgers piece. Talk about it.
Okay, so Rutgers is the
Big
large.
Pharma? Is that the biggest piece?
So Steve, as you know, I come from Big Pharma originally before coming back to Rutgers 10 years ago. Clearly, Big Pharma has evolved its mission in New Jersey, moved some of the basic R&D out, actually, to our detriment, actually. However, they've really outsourced a lot of their basic R&D. And so universities, which are doing a lot of life science research like Rutgers, are actually collaborating with pharma companies, looking at new targets for disease, looking at new avenues for drug discovery in areas like anti-infectives that pharma is really not focused on at all. Rutgers, with its merger with UMDNJ, has really now expanded.
University of Medicine and Dentistry.
Yes, has really now expanded its footprint in life sciences, is working with a variety of pharma companies on using federal research dollars to develop new antibiotics and a variety of new companies that will be in New Jersey, that will employ our students that come from all of our universities, actually, and really knit together what we call an ecosystem of research that will help bring jobs and more companies here.
But Chris, as I'm listening to you, I've had an offline conversation with Dr. Bloom to disclose NJIT as a major underwriter of our programming here in public television as well. Rowan's come on board recently. But I've got to say this to you, Joel. We've had an offline conversation in which you've talked about the role of NJIT in medical, I don't want to call it, it's not medical education, but helping clinicians be more effective in what they're doing with medical records, no?
So there's that, but let me, the ecosystem. So
what does that mean?
So the ecosystem is real simple. As we're sitting around a table, you need spaces, whether they're back in the company, in the industry, or they're on your campus, where we can have a conversation about a product, a process, software, hardware. For example, you probably read about a week ago, Hackensack announced that they're moving into our brand new New Jersey Innovation Institute facility. They're going to place a think tank in the facility. Others are there too. The primary purpose for Hackensack Health Systems to be there is to try out new ideas, get input of faculty, staff, students, to have access to facilities and obviously equipment. It's a synergy. Today, the term that you continue to read about is service, science, engineering, and technology. There's basic R&D that's been historic on all of our campuses. But today, if you go to Facebook, if you go to Google, if you go to Big Pharma, they have research scientists teaming with marketing people, teaming with finance people, teaming with manufacturing people, and they have to be in the same space because that's where things get innovative and creative.
It's so clear to me, the medical relationships. You folks have a medical relationship.
Sure, very strong.
Break it out a little bit.
I'll give you one example of the latest technologies. Exactly what Joel is saying, that when the think tank group get together and interaction takes place at every level. We have, for example, researchers right now, engineers in biomedical engineering who have developed a robot that you can put around a broken femur. And if you have a broken femur and you go to a surgery and a surgeon wants to fix that, it's not an easy thing, because what they need to do, they need to take an X-ray and define the nature of the breakage, and based on trial and error, try to kind of fix this thing. And in doing so, you could have a tissue damage, internal bleeding, all sorts of things. And as a result of that, by the time a patient with broken femur gets fixed in a surgery room, it could be up to 70 or 80 X-rays taken, because they have to do manipulation until they get there. Now, through this robot, you put the robot around the broken femur, you take an X-ray, and then let the robot go to work, and then come back and gives you, the doctor, the exact direction of adjustment, and then one more X-ray, and it's done.
Dr. Hushman, that was not taking place 10 years ago?
No.
And you have a relationship with?
Well, we of course, Rutgers has this relationship with the RWJ Barnabas health system. You know,
For what? Like, what's that connection?
So there's a huge amount of patients. It's one of the top 20 clinical patient populations in the United States, actually, Steve. But you know, the Rutgers faculty are actually able to run clinical trials in a huge, diverse population. New Jersey is the most diverse patient population.
At the medical school? At
the medical school in Newark, in New Brunswick, in a variety of areas. We run, you know, dozens of trials for pharma companies, actually just testing
clinical trials,
testing their products, testing products that are actually developed on campus using some of our patented technologies. Again, it's that ecosystem that we work together on, medical, basic science, and it extends into engineering, manufacturing, things that Stevens does, that Rowan's do, that NJIT
Before we go to
does.
break, I'm sorry, Doctor, do you compete with each other? It's interesting. There's so much collaboration going on here.
I think there's a lot of, I don't know of competition in a negative sense. We of course, all work in similar areas, and we go after similar opportunities.
Is it healthy competition?
There is very strong partnership, I would say.
That's
Very healthy.
So just 10 years ago, a different environment. It's a different environment in higher ed, because you have to be working together and collaborating in ways that it's not just about, let's just attract students and that's our job. Listen, I'm going to go to break right here. I'm coming back to you, Doctor, okay? Stay with us. A fascinating conversation about the role of higher ed outside the classroom, having a huge impact on your everyday life. We'll be right back right after this.
To watch more Caucus New Jersey, find us online and follow us on social media.
Welcome back, folks. The conversation continued during the break right there with these four great scholars and really the top executives in their institutions of higher learning. No disrespect to Dr. Barchi. Let me ask you, Doctor. You have said, you told our producers, and I know you want to comment on something else as well, but you said the technology issue we need to look at more closely. That it has so many positive benefits, but we need to look at it and ask ourselves, are there some downsides to it in terms of employment? Talk about that.
Well, in general, I'd like to think of technology as an agent for social change.
Right.
A lot of positive change, and from time to time, challenges and negative changes. I can give you a couple of interesting examples. For example, technology has been a significant contributor for a long time in improving labor productivity. In fact, these days, a lot of manufacturing jobs are done not by human beings, but by robots. And in the years to come, they will do a lot more. What does this mean in terms of replacing jobs?
How about a driverless car?
How about a driverless car? There are so many examples. It was announced just very recently that BlackRock is deploying robotic investment advising, which means that they're very sophisticated financial analysts. These are very highly educated, brilliant, highly paid people who will be out of job. That's one example. Another example is this advanced communication and computing network that we didn't have 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But at the time, we also didn't have the term cybersecurity.
Okay,
So we're creating a lot of new problems because of technological advancements.
But respectfully, as Dr. Fardam raises this point, to what degree is there a real dialogue going on in higher ed and with your associates about how do we deal with that? How honest is that? I'll come back to you.
Well,
yeah.
Unfortunately, the overall heading is automation, right? And it's happening across business industry. There's not enough dialogue. I mean, if we talk about driverless trucks, drive past any service center on New Jersey Turnpike, they can't fit into the current parking facilities of these service centers. We see them on the side of the road. What's the impact? So those conversations, to be honest, are not taking place, and they can certainly take place across these institutions, but they really need to take place at top governmental levels.
Policy level.
Policy levels. You just heard one company just took their driverless taxis off the
That's
road
right.
because of a rollover accident. So it's technology, and we just heard the statement. It has great positives, but we really need a lot more policy work on what's the social, economic impact on our society, on our people, and it's not really happening. It hasn't happened in the state of New Jersey. It's not happening across the nation.
Dr. Usman, what gets in the way of doing that? I'll come back to you. What stands in the way of us talking openly about that? Because you talked about the robotic advantages on the clinical side of diagnosing in a way you couldn't before. That's so positive. But why not have an honest discussion with policymakers? I mean, here's what I'm trying to get to. Is higher ed responsible to drive all of this? I mean, what is the role of government officials in this?
Everybody, I think the responsibility really extends to everybody. I think the local government, federal and state government, business leaders and higher education leaders need to come together to have that conversation. One cannot really blame one sector in here. I think the interaction amongst us is absolutely essential because the funding agencies are no longer willing to fund just one individual institution. They want to get much more bang for their bucks. They want to make sure that the technologies that are created, the knowledge that has been created as a result of funding can extend and create maximum return to the society. Those are important. The negative of the technology that I see it right now, quite honestly, is the social impact of it. Social impact. Look at the cell phone and look at the kids of today. Patience as a virtue has simply left the society. Everybody expects response right now. And what happens is, in physical needs, you can get the response quickly, but emotional needs and mental needs are all different story. As a result, the text and a phone call and any kind of the social media is not going to help you. And that really is a concern that we are finding in our universities. Many students come in here, they're impatient, they don't know how to interact with each other, and as a result,
the result
of that, they're not going to become good employees in the future, how to interact in the society.
And again, the role of higher education in helping folks in that regard. Dr. and I'll come back to you, Chris.
I wanted to make a point about what my friend Joel Bloom mentioned about the role of policymakers.
Yes.
I think this is a very important issue.
Because I don't hear the discussion, Doctor.
And I don't hear enough of it, and I worry about it. You know, on the one hand, we all hear about the increasing role of artificial intelligence and machine learning in addressing a lot of issues in the years to come. Driverless cars is one example, but there's a plethora. On the other hand, a lot of people are worried about the ethics associated with machines taking over our lives. Yeah. So the problem that I think I'd like to highlight is that at the government and legislator level, we don't have an adequate level of technological sophistication. And if that level of technological sophistication does not exist, the appropriate policies will not be developed.
You know, to that point, I have to say to Chris, I'm going to give Chris a chance.
I'm sorry.
No, please. No, you go ahead.
When you look at the federal structure today, whether it was past administration, current administration, to Nariman's point, you don't have an ethics component. You have a small one in NIH, hardly one in NSF. I'm sorry, National Institute of Health, National Science. So the issue of policy, the impact of technology and ethics is the last.
How could that be? With the ethical implications here?
Yeah, yes, but it's really higher education's role to actually step forward and kind of push this agenda a little bit. Yeah. You know, we have at our university, the Blasting School, that working in a whole variety of policy areas. It's very important to engage our politicians. I think the New Jersey legislature in general is very interested in the role of higher ed. In terms of automation, though, we also have a role to really move our students into areas where they understand how they can take technology, innovation, cybersecurity, and actually use it to our business
Concrete
advantage.
example, Chris?
So, for example, one of the initiatives we're working on at Rutgers in the engineering school is how to produce pharmaceutical agents faster, cheaper, better, using continuous manufacturing processes. It's something actually we collaborate with multiple universities on, and the pharma industry. And it's an automated process. It's innovative. It allows you to go from batch production of pharmaceuticals to really in the field, just-in-time manufacture. Can be done in Africa. And we're training the students, working with the Food and Drug Administration in Washington, to actually work on procedures of how this is done. Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, all the big pharmas are involved in this process. Again, it's using innovation to move products forward, to develop an economic platform that can be useful to the citizens of New Jersey, to bring manufacturing back here, but also to be able to train students to really do this even overseas and attract companies that do this.
You know, it's interesting. People who watch us on a regular basis know I disclose certain relationships. And I was joking before we got on the air that I should disclose that I'm a graduate of Rutgers. But I remember...
As am I.
There's a point to this. I remember being in the doctoral program in the School of Communication, Information, and Library Studies over on the New Brunswick campus. And the point I'm making is that I remember an extensive course we took on information technology. And I'm no technological whiz, trust me. But I remember the ethical and moral and complex questions raised around intellectual intelligence. Gardner, I don't know why I remember Gardner, who was one of the great researchers in the field. And this was in the mid-90s, an intense discussion about the implications of artificial intelligence and its human implications. And I'm thinking, that was 20 plus years ago. Right. And now we're talking today about the fact that we haven't made enough progress about having an honest dialogue about the human implications, the ethical implications, as if we don't want to, have a real dialogue about this. And I don't want to turn it into an ethical discussion, but I just feel like, again, higher education has got to be the driver, because I don't see our elected officials, my job is not to do commentary, until I just don't see our elected officials saying, hey, listen, let's convene a real meaningful discussion around this.
We certainly have a role in it. But how many roles can we pick up at one time? Well, there are actually the people leading more of the moral, ethical conversations today are think tanks and foundations.
Independent?
Independent of the government. I don't want to get into promoting anyone, but look at the work that the Gates Foundation is doing around the world. We as a country in part abandoned that role, and they've taken their resources, picked up the ball, and they're running with it. And I'm not saying it's necessarily the U.S.'s role to supply health care around the world, healthcare delivery. But so there's multiple players here.
Here's what I'm going to ask. Predictions about the impact that higher education will have over the next 3 to 5 years on the New Jersey economy in a substantive way, with all the challenges we face. I know it's a loaded question. Go.
I think all politics are local. I can tell you our impact for our local economy is going to be significant. We have built $700 million of infrastructure over the past 6 years. We are scheduled to build $1.2 billion over the over the next 6 or 7 years. And as a result of that, thousands of jobs are being created. The property values are going up. The roads are being surfaced. The schools are being funded. And all of these things is the benefit of that public-private partnership, when people and leaders from all walks of life come together and have a common vision to make the lives of everybody better.
So $300 million in the $1 million worth of construction. We're hiring 100 new faculty. We're involved in the Gateway Project, which is a community development, a $1.3 billion project that'll happen over the next decade. And as we know, we've all done these economic impact studies. I think ours came up for 2015, $1.74 billion in the state of New Jersey.
Big
economic impact.
Impact in your community.
Let's recognize that New Jersey has a knowledge-based economy, and Stevens has a very important role in fueling that economy through its research and development activities and through educating technologically savvy workforce for the years to come.
Final seconds, Rutgers is everywhere.
Rutgers is a $650 million research budget, 10 times our athletic budget, actually. Major impact on funding, public-private partnerships, new companies, new initiatives, and new partnerships with our sister and brother universities around the state.
Cannot thank you all enough. A very important conversation. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Think this is absurd? Insurance fraud costs every New Jersey family over $1,300 every year. Report fraud at njInsuranceFraud.org.
Also brought to you by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, New Jersey Sharing Network, and by the Northeast Regional Council of Carpenters.